When the Indian Air Force, IAF, launched a surprise attack with overwhelming numerical and equipment superiority, why did it end in a 6-0 defeat in the military conflict known as Operation Vermilion? The Pakistan Air Force, PAF, used a combination of Chinese-made J-10C fighters and PL-15 missiles to shoot down 6 Indian military planes, including 3 French Rafale fighters, in just a few hours, while the PAF itself suffered 0 combat losses. The amazing performance of 0 combat losses not only subverts the international community's traditional perception of Chinese and Western military equipment, but also exposes the deep logic of system confrontation and combat training in modern air warfare. India launched Operation Vermilion, began in the early hours of May 7, 2025, aimed at destroying targets in Pakistan through joint strikes by the 3 armed forces. The Indian Air Force deployed 125 sorties, including 8 Rafale fighters, Su-30MKI, and MiG-29 and other main types of aircraft, while launching the French Storm Shadow cruise missiles and Hammer precision-guided bombs. Trying to reduce the risk of conflict escalation with non-contact strikes. However, India's strategic targeting was contradictory. On the one hand, it claimed that it did not attack military installations, while on the other hand, it bombed guerrilla camps, resulting in a limited impact and raising questions in international public opinion. More fatal is that the Indian Air Force relies on the universal brand equipment system exposed fatal flaws. French Rafale, Russian Su-30MKI, US UAVs and other equipment data chains are not compatible with each other, and tactical coordination is almost impossible. Mutually incompatible, tactical coordination is almost zero, and ultimately evolved into a single aircraft assault, scattered attacks. Pakistan, on the other hand, relies on the full system combat capability provided by China to build a highly efficient defense network. The ZDK-03 early warning aircraft monitors the battlefield in real time, with a detection radius of 400 kilometers, and together with the KL-J-7A active phased array radar of the J-10CE, it can be used to monitor the battlefield before the radar of the Rafale is turned on. With the KL-J-7A active phased array radar of the J-10CE, it can lock the Rafale's radar 60 to 100 kilometers before it is turned on, and guide the PL-15 missiles to carry out over-the-horizon strikes through the data chain. This early warning aircraft plus 4.5 generations of fighter aircraft plus ultra-long-range missiles combination, the formation of found that is destroyed kill chain, so that the Indian pilots were shot down before entering the range. Wreckage photos circulating on social media show that the Indian Rafale drogue fragments marked with BS001 serial number and India's first delivery of the Rafale fighter jet number consistent, while the Punjab found the remains of the PL-15E missile confirms the use of Chinese missiles in their operational debut. The IAF's fiasco is essentially a reflection of the technological generation gap. Although the price of the Rafale is as high as $250 million, the French-made Mika missiles have a range of less than 80 kilometers and lack the fire control synergy with the Russian-made Ir-77 missiles, making it difficult for the Indian Army to form a tactical echelon. On the contrary, Pakistan's J-10C only costs $40 million, but carries PL-15 missiles with a range of more than 200 kilometers, combined with the battlefield sensing advantages of the ZDK-03 early warning aircraft forming an asymmetric strike capability. In addition, the average annual training time of Indian pilots is less than 120 hours, far lower than the 200 hours of the Pakistani side. Coupled with the Su-30MKI and other models of the age of more than 20 years, mechanical failures are frequent, further amplifying the operational risk. Pakistan's systematic advantage is also reflected in the field of electronic warfare. The ZDK-03 AWACS and J-10CE's electronic warfare pods implemented full band jamming on Indian warplanes, leading to the paralysis of their radar and communication systems. The Indian Air Force later part of the crash attributed to mechanical failure, but the electromagnetic interference records released by the Pakistani side showed that the Indian warplanes, in the engagement into the invisible, cannot hit, cannot escape, desperate situation. This system of crushing not only shot down the Indian warplanes, but also shattered its military power. Illusory image, as the Pakistani Air Force Chief of Staff said, "We do not need the most advanced warplanes, only need more than the enemy. We don't need the most advanced warplanes, we just need one more bullets range than the enemy." The conflict has had a far-reaching impact on the global arms trade market. The myth of the French Rafale's invincibility has been shattered, and countries such as Egypt and Saudi Arabia have turned their attention to the J-10C, while Serbia's previous decision to give up the Rafale in favor of the Kingpin has also been called into question. If France's Dassault Aviation wants to maintain its market share, it needs to integrate Meteor missiles and advanced electronic warfare systems for the Rafale, or it may face a loss of orders. At the same time, China's military industry, by virtue of cost-effective and systematic advantages, is from catching up to standard setting. Egypt in the Civilization of the Eagle, 2025, joint military exercises and the experience of J-10C has been considered to replace the existing Rafale. Saudi Arabia, Iran and other countries have also demonstrated procurement intentions. China is expected to impact on the global military trade in the top 3. Geopolitical level, India is in multiple predicaments. It's cut off the water source of the Chenab River, the implementation of economic blockade and other extreme pressure means, but instead of intensifying the domestic industrial conflicts, and by the United Nations Secretary-General Guterres warned that, is sliding towards a full-scale war. Pakistan strengthened its nuclear deterrence by test-firing the Shaheen-3 medium-range missile, forcing India to weigh military risk-taking against strategic compromise. Iran initiated shuttle diplomacy in an attempt to mediate the conflict, but India's rejection of third-party involvement has left the situation deadlocked. Potential joint mediation by the United States, Russia, and China may be a key variable, but India's border disputes with China and Russia and divergent strategic interests with the United States have narrowed its diplomatic room for maneuver. The current situation may evolve in 3 directions. First, the Indian Navy will retaliate by deploying the aircraft carrier Vikrant, but the CM-400 supersonic anti-ship missiles and C-802 missiles of the Pakistani side have already posed an anti-intervention threat, and once the carrier is sunk, Indian Ocean hegemony will be jeopardized. Once the carrier is sunk, the hegemony in the Indian Ocean will completely collapse. Secondly, the international community pushes for a ceasefire, and India is forced to accept French technological upgrades or purchase US-made F-35s, but its deal with Russia for S-400s may lead to US sanctions, making it difficult to resolve the diplomatic dilemma. Thirdly, India is upgrading the deployment of its Spitfire missiles, and Pakistan is using the Shaheen-3 missiles as a means of retaliation. Third, India's escalating deployment of Spark missiles, and Pakistan's response with the Shaheen-3, and the loss of control over nuclear deterrence on both sides could trigger global intervention, and even an arms embargo. This conflict reveals the essence of modern warfare change, the performance of a single equipment advantage in the systematic combat in front of the unbearable, and universal brand equipment patchwork more highlight the synergies of the short board. India spent $8.8 billion to purchase the Rafale, failed to reverse the war situation, reflecting China's medium armament system of efficiency and cost advantages. In addition, the quality of personnel and combat training is far more important than the pile of equipment. Pakistani pilots, through joint exercises with Qatar and the United Arab Emirates, has long been able to understand the tactical characteristics of the Rafale, while the Indian Army's inefficient training and logistical disorganization has become a fatal weakness. The night sky of Kashmir has witnessed the rewriting of military rules, while India is still showing off its overpriced weapons. Pakistan has already proved with actual battles that real combat power comes from independent innovation and systematic thinking. This conflict is not only a local confrontation, but also the epitome of global military change. The future of the war will depend on who can more quickly complete the equipment race to system integration. The future of war may depend on who can more quickly complete the transition from equipment race to system integration.